what's going to happen to solar in the next 4 or 5 years. Somebody's listening that wants to be in solar. They are working for family. They're not coming to work for Sunder. They just want to know that you believe in the industry. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the macro forces are on our side.
What up, DDD World? Special guest today, Eric Nielsen. Eric,
Hey.
How are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. We go way back. In fact, I actually wore a Vivint jacket today coming in because it was raining, and I was like, oh, I should go on camera with that. But our paths crossed back in the Vivint days. I think you just had got back from Ohio State or something.
That's right, yeah.
What year was that?
2014.
That's right.
Yeah.
2014.
It's been 10 years.
And you went this, well, if you don't know who Eric is, he's I guess the co-founder of Sunder Energy, you and Max.
Yep.
It's funny I didn't invite Max in today. Did he? Hopefully he wasn't hurt.
It's fine. Yeah, he's good.
Does he know?
Busy.
Does he know you're here?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. So when he sees this,
we won't tell him.
Max, I didn't think about you, but I think about you now.
He's done his share. Yeah.
Yeah. So we go way back to 2014. You just came out of Ohio State. And walk us through what you were doing back in the day, because you knocked doors prior to going out there, right? And so tell us your door-to-door history.
Yeah, so started knocking doors as a profession in 2008. So I was an undergrad student at Utah State and had friends that were in the space. And this was the time where Vivint used to be called Apex and Pinnacle were like neck and neck and crazy competitive. And so I had some buddies at Apex and thought that that'd be a good fit for me. So I ended up going there and I sold for 5 years, managed teams for 5 years, made a transition over to Pinnacle for the last 3. And then always kind of knew I was going to go to grad school. That was a goal of mine and thought that I'd get out of the industry. And, little did I know after grad school, I'd get sucked right back into it. But yes, 5 years selling, managing teams, hitting the pavement, doing all the things.
So at grad school, I mean, did you reach back out to Vivint, and how did you was that the first job after grad school, right?
It was, yeah. I did an internship during my first summer at a Fortune 500 company. And it's interesting. I was so bored. I was making slide decks and there were smart people around, but I didn't feel like I was really moving the needle much. The business was highly successful and doing great, but I just missed this crazy world of door to door. And a good friend of mine, Doug Barnett, had transitioned from Pinnacle over to Vivint during my time in grad school. And I think he put me in touch with Todd Santiago, and they flew out and we met at a pizza joint in Columbus, and Todd convinced me to come join the team. So
they flew out to you.
They came to me. Yeah, I think they were probably visiting teams and.
No, we'll just say they came to you.
But yeah, they came to me.
Yeah, no, so. they actually they had made me fly out, so they came to you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
All right, and so that's when you came in and you basically took over what we called the GM program back. Was that your first project?
No, so actually, first project was fairs and shows.
Oh, that's right.
And this was right around the time I think that the Cutco group was being recruited. And so, I did some work with Neil Rogers out in Florida, and I was still in grad school and kind of flying out on weekends, come to Utah, go to Florida, and got busy starting, I think, in January of that second year of my MBA program. And your group kind of came in as we had been doing fairs and shows for like 3 months.
Right.
And it was like, all right, here's the professionals just showed up.
Probably
like
5x the number of shows or something.
We're going to hand over this program to you guys. And then my first project was actually retail. So we had 2 Vivint locations at the time, like Vivint branded kiosks. And we kind of pivoted strategy and started going through Verizon indirect brick and mortar locations. And we built that up to over 400 locations throughout the country. And that was kind of the start of the retail experience at Vivint.
So you could have given me the heads up that was a path I shouldn't have went down.
Hey, you know what? You never called. I don't
think I knew.
I think it had legs. We ran a profitable program, and there's a lot of interest out there for smart homes. So it was a lot of fun. But during that time, there was this like constant need for a year-round program at Vivint. And I remember I was at Klondike event up in
that was my first Vivint event. It was the greatest thing. It was the greatest experience ever.
I'm surprised nobody died at that. Bodie had the saw out and things were crazy, but I remember talking to a guy named Rich Goetz, who's been in the industry for a long time, and we were like talking next to a pickup truck, and he's like, you know, Eric, the person that figures out how to make a business in this space more year round and more consistent is going to be very, very successful. And I know Rich had sold prior to his time as an attorney, and he had a lot of insight into the space. And so that kind of stuck with me. I was like, you know what? Rich is right. Like, he has a point. And so when kind of the combination of you guys coming into Vivint, me doing some other biz dev stuff where I was running into some problems because we were so seasonal, it really helped generate this idea to start a year-round program at Vivint. And the first two guys in were John Taylor and Eli Robertson. Shout out to those guys.
Yeah, John's still crushing it.
Yeah, John and I we were like creating things on my wife's computer and kind of doing the Skunk Works thing in the background. And Casey Baugh caught wind and was like, yeah, let's do this, and kind of sponsored it from a recruiting standpoint. And then for the next year, we built the GM program, and I think we got it up to 30 or 35 offices in that time. So
you look back at that time, because, you know, before we went on camera, we talked about just some life lessons and how sometimes things, you know, fall apart, but that come back better, right? I think back about, you know, Vivint is such a NRG or Vivint, whatever, such a young company still.
Yeah.
And then it was even younger. And I remember sitting there in those VP meetings thinking, you're making all the mistakes I made 20 years ago, you know, when I was like, it's like, what are we doing this for? But it's almost like you have to go through those growing pains.
Yeah.
And so the GM program and Vivint Solar 2.0, or whatever we want to call it, where there was just so many pain points. And now you look back at it, you're like, what were we doing? Right. But I'm curious on how that experience helped you shape Sunder, right? Because you learned a lot about what not to do.
Yeah.
Right. And how did that help you shape Sunder? I'm assuming it did. And what's the foundation that you built the program on?
Yeah. So, you know, I give a lot of credit to you. There's a guy named Wes Goddard who you know well.
Yeah.
Stud.
So let's kind of wrap it full circle. So you know, Wes, Dave, and I came over. Right? We had 100 and some odd people who came with us, and we went out and run. We ran the kind of the friends and family model for one summer. Halfway through the summer, we decided, hey, this is probably not going to scale at a pace that's going to be profitable for Vivint. So we converted to door-to-door, just turned our recruiting model into door-to-door, and went out and put out 200 plus rookies that second summer. I think we were top 5 regional at Vivint. And then the trio, Casey, Jeff, and Bo, and Doug, and Santiago, flew us in August. I don't know if I ever told you this, but my wife's driving me to the airport, and I'm like, I think Vivint's going to ask me to move to Utah. She's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I don't know. I just got this sick feeling that you know, they're going to ask me to move to Utah. And she's like,
this Cali boy.
She's like, let's go. This is my wife. So, yeah. She's like, whatever, let's go.
That's cool.
And so on the flight, I'm looking at houses in Utah. This is me. I'm just like, my ADD was kicking in.
Just in case.
Looking at houses in Utah. And the way they have this meeting set up is they're all sitting in the conference room outside Doug's office, and they're just talking. We're sitting in there waiting. And they finally come out and they get me first. And I go in and sit with them, and I'm like, this is their strategy here.
Yeah.
And so somebody had to go to the bathroom, and they asked me how things were, and I'm like, life's great, man. I was just you know, in the pool with my kids before we flew here. And she's like, are you gonna have another kid? I'm like, no, man, I need a bigger house. And they're like, well, maybe we can arrange that for you. I'm like, you guys are gonna ask me to move to Utah, aren't you? And that's like, it was, yeah. And they're like, so whoever came back from the bathroom was like, oh, yeah, deal's done. Right? It was really funny. It sped up that meeting from what they planned on being an hour to be like 5 minutes. And then we decided what I would do while I was there. But yes, you know, Wes, Dave, and I, so I took over some of the manager development at Vivint, and Wes kind of ran with the GM program, and Dave stayed with our current book of business there. So anyway, back to the GM program, what you learned and how you implemented it to Sunder.
Yeah. I mean, that whole Vivint experience post grad school was so incredible for me. I kind of had a front row seat to see Todd Peterson work, and he would stop me in the hallway and cared about what was going on in my life. And it really stuck with me. This guy is not above anybody. Like, he's humble and kind and really talented. Reported to Scott Hardy for a while, who is an incredible leader. Todd Santiago is very strategic in his ways. I got to see the 7 and how they operated. So all of that was really cool. I think the GM program specifically, and working closely with Wes, taught me how to source local talent, build around that local talent, and really grow with the amazing people that exist outside of the Intermountain West.
Right.
I think the hit rate is so high, it feels like people in this area are sort of bred to do this job. But there's so much talent outside of the Intermountain West that is untapped, and you guys just know how to tap into that. And so whether it was campus recruiting or, learning how to source from online sources, or how to do an interview efficiently and how to get through 30 people in
onboard them
2
and train
hours,
them.
how to get them trained up, like all of that was so insightful. And so as I kind of went into the solar industry, I was like, this is the model. It is year-round, sustainable, source local talent, build around them. And it's been an incredible thing. I think Sunder is sort of scaled nationally because of those early learnings that I had while running the GM program.
And then, solar is such still in the gold rush, right? In the gold rush, a lot of people got shot, and a lot of fighting. The
trek out to the hills,
the McCoys and the Clampetts, or whatever. Your transition from Vivint to solar, right? There's a story there.
Yeah.
When did you know you were going to take your package education, right? Your 5 years of knocking, grad school, the business mind that gives you, and then being able to touch biz dev in a way where your brain had to start thinking, how do I go do my own thing, right?
Actually, it wasn't quite there. Like my dad's an entrepreneur, and it's kind of in my DNA, but I wasn't quite ready to be a business owner at that point, and it wasn't really on my mind at that point. Some guys that I had worked with in the Pinnacle days had transitioned to Vivint. And after I was at Vivint post grad school, only a few months, they started a company in the solar space. And so I kind of would watch them and stay in touch with them. A lot of my former downline was in that new business. And I thought it was really interesting. But in my biz dev role at Vivint, I was teaming up with the head of biz dev at the time at Vivint Solar, a guy named Taylor Turnbull. And we would go pitch companies together. We thought the package deal was a better offering. So I remember meeting with Amazon and DR Horton and tons of these big companies with Taylor and pitching the two companies as one package. And I just started to really like what I heard on the solar side. And so, the guys that had kind of broken off of Vivint and started a new solar company were asking me to come join them, and I thought it was a good opportunity, so I jumped into that and kind of worked in a more corporate role for about 4 years in that company, and that's Legacy Power, for those of you that have heard of it. And then I actually didn't know if I was going to continue in the space when my time at Legacy came to an end. I was kind of conflicted. I didn't know if I should stay in the space or if I should go do something else. And, there's a good friend, I think you know him as well, Cody Guyman, who transitioned from Vivint into the SaaS world. And I was talking with him a lot about potentially joining him in that space.
I need to get Cody in here because he had another great. He was in your role before you, right? Was that
It was similar. Yeah, we were kind of in the same.
Were you there
team,
at the same time?
Same time. Yep.
Cody's the first guy to always respond on my kids' baseball posts on Facebook.
He's the best. Yeah, Cody's the man. So I was like really conflicted, and then almost I just had this feeling that I needed to start Sunder as a disruptive company in the space that did things a little differently and treated reps with respect. And the word itself means to break apart. And of course, we're breaking apart monopolies and we're breaking apart the carbon industry, and there's a good rah-rah behind the word. But more than anything, we wanted to break apart from some of the toxic ways of our industry, kind of the litigious nature of the industry and non-competes, non-solicits on 1099 sales reps and things that we didn't feel right about. Paying reps their pipeline if they've gone on beyond your company, those types of things were really important to us. And so the word Sunder kind of fit with what we were looking to do.
Yeah. So, so getting into solar, like, I think you started, was it around COVID, right? Like it was like,
yeah, it was like 6 months before COVID hit.
Right. So
Sunder was born.
So you've told me this story before. Yeah. So let's walk through those first year, first 6 months. And I, and I don't know, how, if you want to talk about how Sunder was founded and the backing and all that, but tell us the first 6 months, story you've told me before in a way that you want to share with the public.
Yeah. So, I didn't really know what this thing was going to look like, and obviously didn't know a pandemic was coming 6 months from inception, but kind of started the business with scale in mind. Like I definitely wanted to grow, and being a part of a stagnant or small company is not that fun in my mind. So built it on a foundation of core values and a mission that would sustain whether we stayed a small or regional player or became a national player. And I think step one in starting any business is like, what are you about? Figuring that out, being really, really careful about the culture that you want to build up front, and holding to core values. As simple as that sometimes sounds, it's not as easy in practice. And so, Sunder is an acronym in our business. We have our 6 core values that play off of that. And we've held true to the very best of our abilities to those core values throughout our time. But first 6 months was kind of just crazy. Like recruiting was really solid. We started to grow. We had one installation partner, that was Freedom Forever. Freedom was pretty small at the time. I think they only operated in 5 or 6 states. And, we didn't know how big this thing was going to get, but we just put our head down, started working. And then that day in March, I think it was somewhere around March 20th, everything stopped. The world stopped. Rudy Gobert spread his COVID disease all over the country.
Come on, Utah, we had covered about 2 weeks.
We did. But that was like really, really scary. So sales basically came to a halt. That first week was very scary. The second week, we started to figure out ways to still sell the product. And then depending on the state, certain states like shut down door-to-door activity. Other states were open to it. And that month after COVID started, things just exploded. So we had very little support as far as W-2 employees and back office. And by May, we were doing 1,000 accounts a month
during COVID.
So it was a crazy time, but there were a lot of people that I could give credit to that helped pull us out of that craziness, and we kind of never looked back from there. I think in our first 4 years, we did something like 70,000 solid accounts, and it was a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But the little experiment we started with in late fall 2019 ended up becoming something much bigger than anything I expected.
Yeah, and I think I want to give you a shout out because I would probably reach out every 6 months. I would ping you and we go to lunch.
Yeah.
I remember the second time we go to Tsunami and Alex Dunn sitting behind us. I don't know if you remember that. We're just having love. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't leaving Vivint. He wasn't recruiting me. I'm like, I just want to check in with Eric. We sit down at this restaurant and the president of the company sitting like at one table behind us. I'm like, well, I wonder if this is going to get back to me at the office. And it never did. But Alex probably didn't see us. But every 6 months or so we would go out to eat or check in. And every day in my journal, I was writing, basically get involved in solar. I pushed really hard. to do some stuff with solar, prior to transaction at Vivint. And as you know, there's just too many people wanting involved. And I was going to lose a really good person that was on my team that was going to go to a solar company. I'm like, they're going to go do something there that we can do here.
Yeah.
Let's just do it here and not lose this person.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't get it done. It wasn't until my mom had dementia. My dad had, my wife had like 7 herniated discs.
Jeez.
I needed to work from home. And I just called you up and said, basically, I need a job. I don't want to go to the office. I don't want to be in meetings I don't set. I basically gave you my
wish list.
My wish list. And you're like, can you start Monday? And I'm like, no, let's meet on Monday. And then I remember that meeting, I'm like, oh, I need one more thing. I need a car. And if you remember this.
I don't remember that part.
And you're like, well, why? I'm like, because you said yes to everything else. I need you to say no to something.
I probably said no to that.
Yeah, you did. But it was just, you basically, had enough faith in me to say, yeah, let's go do this project. Yeah. And who knows, what would have happened, had Sunder not had to do some growing pains in the process, because I think it was working what we were doing. And I know it's working because I'm doing it. I'm consulting here at DDD Experts and doing it for other people. But just the right dude all around. And you talked about those values and there's nothing but good things. I've always had Sunder's back. I used to ask you this question. I'm going to ask it to you now to see if you, A, remember the question, and B, if your answer is the same. But what in the solar space keeps you up at night? What's the scariest thing in the solar space? Do you remember what your answer used to be?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Okay, you give me your answer and I'll tell you.
You got to tell me. I think, the industry's been through a lot over these last couple of years. Interest rates going up has an impact throughout the space. And you've seen installer after installer after installer go down, and it's mostly the big guys, and they fall harder because there's more customers, more employees, more reps, more pipeline. So the thing that keeps me up at night that we've effectively tried to solve for in our new model is just solvency of the companies in the space, which has an immediate impact on the customer, on sales reps, on sales companies. And so our big priority over the last 12 to 14 months has been, how do we partner with businesses that aren't teetering on the verge of insolvency, that provide a quality experience to the customer, which means usually providing a quality experience to the sales rep, paying our people a fair wage, those types of things. And we've had some really amazing partners in the space that have helped us find the right EPC partners and finance partners so that we have stability in the space. And, I think there were something like 7 or 8 national installers a year ago, and now there's like 2. And so it's a real challenge that the space has. And that's why we've pivoted more toward a regional installation strategy. And we've been extremely pleased with that so far. So
your answer used to be Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, that could happen too.
But I think a lot has changed since then. But I asked you a few times over the years, like, I would scare Elon Musk to disrupt solar at any time.
Yeah.
I think the banks
with one tweet, he could completely control the space.
Do you think eventually solar is going to be sold the way Tesla sells solar, where you just go online, you pick stuff out? Yeah.
I think there will be more of that as adoption increases. But just like any product, how long's pest control been around? Like, you could buy pest control online if you want, but so much of the volume comes through direct sales. I think there's something special and unique about an agent going into a neighborhood and seeking out business. I think certain people have a tendency to buy online, or they maybe like to respond to a mailer or something like that. And, we're dabbling in those things. We kind of always have. But for the most part, the solar sale it's a fairly complex thing that they're signing up for. And so having an agent in home that can be trusted and a business behind them that's trusted and experienced in the space, I think there's always going to be a lot of business to be had that way. But to your question, I absolutely think people online will get more savvy with how they generate interest and how they sign up customers and things of the sort.
So let's talk about some of the hair around solar.
Yeah.
I spent a couple years in it after I left Smart Home, to a point where I didn't want to be in solar. Like it was like, it's not, I'm from a tiny town in Northern California, 2 stoplights, everybody, you don't cross people. And it just, you can't there was, what we used to talk about would be consumer protection. There was no consumer, and there really isn't any consumer protection. Like when Biden raised it back to 30%, everybody was like, oh, it's all great for the homeowners. I'm like, they ain't going to see a penny of that. That's just pay raises for the sales reps selling it. And if you understand solar, that's probably what happened in 99% of the cases is they went in and they presented the same price and the rebate just lowered. Anyway, I don't want to get into the details of it, but there is no really consumer protection. So these installers get pressured by the sales organizations for lower rates, lower red lines or whatever you want to call them, and they're desperate because they're playing the volume game because they've gave everybody such great rates. They need volume, and they get themselves in these really, really thin margins, and then these tens of thousands of homeowners that are waiting for their solar patiently or impatiently, and all of a sudden that installer is out of business. And so it's just, there's a lot of hair around the space. Now, I know where you come from, that's not how you operate. That is, you're looking at the deals that are coming in. You're squashing anything that looks kind of fishy. How does the industry as a whole get better to protect the customer from the sales rep who has the ability to make large commissions selling that product?
So that is a complex issue. I think one of the things that's helping naturally is there's a shift to third-party owned systems. We could, for industry vernacular, TPO, the Everbrights, the LightReaches, the Enfin TPO, GoodLeap TPO, Sunrun, obviously TPO. Those companies are pretty strict with what's coming in, and there's a lot of validation, a lot of pictures. If you're not saving the customer in the first year, usually you can't sell the deal. And so I think the finance companies, as the shift to TPO has been taking place, mostly because of the Inflation Reduction Act incentives, you're seeing a natural kind of weeding out of bad actors. However, a crafty sales rep could game the system in certain ways. I'm not sure of all the ways that it can be done, but I just know in my 15 plus years in the industry, crafty sales reps can do some stupid things. And so I think the finance companies have largely led out with welcome calls and kind of the know your customer stuff. We're seeing EPCs do more of that. We're taking steps as a sales org to do some of that as well. And but the way the industry's set up, it's more difficult for the sales company to control that because you're signing up that customer with a finance company and an installation company. And so they kind of have their compliance processes in place. And so for us to implement that, it's been challenging, but we're seeing success with that. I will also say, I mean, the sales reps need to know that there's like a one strike policy. Like you don't get a second chance if you do something wrong or a customer claims that you lied to them or you forged a signature or something like that. That's a big problem. But I think as an industry, instead of pointing fingers at whose fault it is, like the finance company saying it's the EPC and the EPC saying it's the sales company and the sales company saying it's the finance company, we actually need to work together to come up with solutions that make sense so that you're not providing a poor customer experience. If the sales company and the installer and the finance company all have their own compliance things, you might be sitting there with redundancies and having customers question what's going on. If we all come together and get more unified on that front, I think it will help a lot as well. But step one for us is like, you just don't tolerate the behavior and you build a culture around that. Step two is how do you build technology and stop gaps and compliance techniques. Step three is how do you train around all of that? And then step four, definitely not listed in importance, but like a definite requirement how do you get together with the players in the industry to ensure that you're all on the same page?
So you finance companies, probably one of the reasons I'm out of solar is I just had a very difficult time. I couldn't sell my friends and family a finance solar system.
Yeah.
Like the dealer fees that aren't talked about. And most people listen to this podcast are in the industry and they understand the game.
Yeah.
And if you're a customer thinking about buying solar, go get educated on dealer fees.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had family members call me and go, they want solar. And I'm like, I'm going to sell you this 10% interest one.
Yeah. 100%.
Why? There's no dealer fee. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to pay 10%. And I go, well, when are you retiring? 3 years. What are you going to stay? No, we're going to sell and move. Great. So you're going to pay. And and they were family, so they were able to listen to me. And I said, 3 years from now, right, you might pay a little bit more on a payment for the next 3 years, but you're going to save all this money on dealer fees when you sell your home.
Yeah.
Right. And they go, great. And so I had a hard time selling. And then when the rates changed and the dealer fees spiked, and I'm like, oh, and then crafty salespeople, right? You know, silver tongued versus, you know, I had a friend of mine call me and go, hey, my buddy is looking at getting solar in California. We'll take a look at the deal. I go, yeah, send it to me. So it sends me the deal, and the customer's going to save $50 a month on their bill. And customers stoked in California to save $50 a month. And so I'm like, Victor, do you want me to tell him, like, he's like, get him the best deal possible? So I called the guy up. I said, Jeff, I'm going to make $1,000 on this. That's what I'm going to make on this. And I'm going to save you $14,000. And you're going to save $250 on your bill.
Yep.
And this, the look on his face on the Zoom was like, wait,
how is that possible? Yeah.
What was going to happen with that other $14,000? And I'm like, well, that goes for company commission and rep commission. And he was like, you can see him get it, where he was stoked to save $50. Now I'm saving him $250. But more importantly, over the course of that piece, and I made him get a 7.9%. I made him get a bigger loan because now he trusted me, and I made $1,000 on the deal. And so that's the issue that I have with the finance companies, but solar can't exist without that product.
Yeah.
So how is that going to change over the next several years?
Yeah, I mean, right now, about 5% of our portfolio is a consumer-owned financed system. So it's becoming less relevant, again, because of the IRA.
And that's
incentives.
probably, I mean, when I was helping out with Sunder, it was mostly, Vegas stuff was like 50-50.
Yeah, it was high. It was high. And I think, to my earlier point around having an agent in the home explaining it the right way is actually really important to the health of the industry. For the right customer, a low APR, high dealer fee might make sense if they know what they're signing up for. Like if we've had a home in the family trust for 3 decades.
Yeah, some customers just aren't savvy enough to care. They're saving $25 a month. They're like, sweet.
It's all about monthly payment to them, which in reality, you need to know the needs of the family. You need to know the projected usage of that home. Are they going to buy an electric car? Do they plan on putting a pool in? Are they making any changes to the home? If they know they're paying a higher dealer fee, but they plan on holding that loan for the duration of the term, it usually could pencil out to be a better deal. But if they're going to move in a year or two, usually the low dealer fee or no dealer fee, high interest would suit their needs better. And I think the rub is when customers think they're getting a low APR and they don't know about the dealer fee. That's very problematic. Or
they have the ability to pay cash too. They have the ability to do a home equity line.
Which, like, a lot of our reps would offer the cash price and say, hey, this is the absolute best deal you can get. If you need to finance it, we have options, and here are the options, and this is what comes with it. And our first recommendation was always the high APR, low dealer fee. But if there was a customer where their needs were a little different, we liked having those other products available. Again, if sold the right way, and if it's disclosed and talked about, the customer knows about it, I don't have issues with that. Those dealer fees aren't going to the pockets of the finance companies or the sales rep necessarily. They're going to buy down the rate to the original investors that are backing these loans. And so it's similar to a mortgage. Like, if you walked in to get a mortgage today and a 1.99% APR was shown, you would know inherently that there are points on this mortgage.
Right. Or something, right? Yeah.
Or something, because it's a well-known loan. But solar loans are so new relative to mortgages that people just don't, for the most part, they just don't know how it works. So it's up to us to really explain that. And then I think the finance companies have gotten better at ensuring through welcome calls and contracts that those numbers are stated clearly. But with the kind of resurge of TPO, that's less of a concern, because the customer doesn't actually own the system. And it's the finance company that's funding you that owns the system. So they have a lot more skin in the game long-term on those deals. And so there's a lot more upfront compliance, I would say, on those products.
Yeah, and for those Sunder reps that are watching this that I worked with, I want to make sure it's clear that they were not the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. The groups that I worked with, I mean, if anything, they had uncomfortably low PPWs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wow, you guys are really like,
Like,
they just
you could probably charge a little more.
Yeah, they killed them with volume for sure.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, just throwing a lot of deals on there, and which is why they get the yes, because it's so hard to get the yes that people want to charge more so they can.
Yeah.
But the idea is, I think karma takes place. There was one other sticky point I wanted to talk about in solar, which I forgot. But while I'm trying to remember, let's talk a little bit about a product that spun off, which I think is an amazing product. Enzi, which is a shout out to Enzi. They're part of our P League here at DDD Experts, and a premium sponsor, premium vendor that gets access. People call us all the time. They want access to our client base. We have, we're the most integrated company in the door-to-door space, and software product like Enzi would help a lot of these companies do more with what they do. Now, I know what I loved about Enzi, and every time I talked about what I loved about it, it bothered Carrie. I'm like, I thought it was an amazing onboarding tool. I'm a recruiter. I'm like, it was such an amazing onboarding tool. And he's like, yeah, but that's not what we do. I'm like, that's exactly what you do.
It's probably the most valuable piece.
So let's talk about, and I think the reporting is great, the text messaging, but I want to hear your pitch on Enzi and what it's doing to change the industry.
Yeah. So, I mean, as a startup, we had needs technologically, and I didn't know how to solve those needs very well. And there is a mentor of mine that you just mentioned, Carrie Jenkins.
Where did you meet Carrie?
I met Carrie. I was actually a missionary in Ohio and met Carrie, who I think Carrie had just sold his first SaaS company right as I met him. So things were fun in the Jenkins home. Things always are fun in the Jenkins home, but he became a close friend. I became close with his wife and his kids, and just kind of stayed in touch. And as I was explaining the challenges of a startup to him over a burrito one day, he was like, you know what? I'm sensing that there's a real need in this country to maximize the benefits dollars that are being spent by businesses. Like the old 401k match, and like, you have some PTO, like that's just not going to cut it for this new generation. And I basically told him, I'm like, look, our industry, this crazy industry that we're a part of, does that type of thing better than any industry I know of. Like, it's motivation, incentives, recognition, communication, making a tough job that most would consider not very fun seem really fun and be fun is what we do. And he was like, oh my gosh, okay, like we need to do something. So at first he was like, let me build free tech for Sunder in this realm. And I was like, okay, like free tech, I'll sign up to that. And then after about 9 months, I was checking Enzi like every 10 minutes. And I was just like, I can't live without this. And I can't even imagine if this were to not work out or go away. And Carrie loves to start his tech businesses with a guinea pig business where he'll usually build tech for free like he did for us. And then he goes and gets clients, paying clients after that. And we determined it would be best if we just bought Enzi and brought him and his team in-house. And so shout out to Price and Hunter and Adam, those early guys that came in, and they became part of the Sunder family for, I think it was something like 3 years.
And they were like 80% of your headcount forever.
Yeah. Software team was big and like comparatively to the back office. And we invested in the tech and kind of built it up. And when we had a need for onboarding, they would build it. And when we had a need for leaderboards and competitions and incentives and communication and all the things. And then eventually it was like, hey, we kind of need a knocking app. And they're like, okay, we build that too. And so now having all of those tools in one is so critical to our business's success. But the whole time, the intent was Sunder is the guinea pig, and then we will spin this business off and it will go serve not only the direct sales industry, but many other industries that don't usually focus on the things that we know work. And we need to go export these lessons that we've learned over these many decades of combined experience to more stagnant kind of traditional industries. And so a little over a year ago, I think we spun out Enzy as a separate business, and they're off and running. They're at Silicon Slopes, and I think they're at something like 90 paying customers in just over a year of marketing the product. And they love you guys, and we're a big part of DDDCon. And so that business has been fun because
we have a special treat this year with DDDCon and Enzy.
Hey,
it's going to be cool.
All right, I'm excited for that announcement. But yeah, the tech world, the SaaS world is different. It's been refreshing in a way to work with clients from all different backgrounds. And we're now even in the multi-level marketing space. We've done restaurants, we've done pest, roofing, solar, alarms, you name it. And we think it's just the beginning. So that business is crushing, and we're super proud of the team and what they've built there.
So onboarding is not my favorite piece, but if
critical though.
I remember when I was sitting in your office and I was like, yeah, let me just onboard, and you just sent me a link, and I'm like, and we were just having a conversation. I'll take my wallet out, took a picture of my license. They wanted the photo of me, so I put a photo of my son, Barbara next to that. She's like, you got to put right, but it was like I onboarded during a conversation. I'm like, that was it. That's great, and. It's one of the services we offer here at DDD Experts is helping companies onboard if they don't have products like Enzy. But if I said, Eric, you're probably a little bit more removed now that you're as big as you guys are. But when you were managing the sales team, and I know you still do, but what's your favorite feature of the tool? Because I'll tell you what mine is.
Oh man, I mean, having data at your fingertips that you can communicate off of is really nice. So like, for years, I wanted to celebrate the wins within our business. But in order to do that, I'd have to pull up my iPad and I'd have my phone. And then it's like, okay, do I email these people? And if it's like, all right, I want to know the 10 people in the business that had their best month last month, or however many people it is, finding that data is like, it's really, really hard. And then once you have it, communicating off of that data is time consuming. And so with as busy as I am as a business owner and a dad and a husband, I just didn't have the time to get the data and then communicate off the data. And Enzy solved that for me. So now I know the 14 people in the business that had a birthday today, and I can send each of them a message. And when they reply back, I can hit them back. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is a real person. This is the owner of the company. And it's not fake. Like, these are real desires that Max and I had that we've kind of implemented into a tool that can bring, if we have 2,000 sales reps, it's tough to go connect with the right people after an achievement is made or a special day has passed. But using Enzy, we're able to do that. And that's my favorite part.
Let me tell you, like you were telling me, I was the things I used to do as a salesman. I mean, I started without a cell phone.
You got like pad and paper.
There was no internet. I had a pager.
Pagers,
right?
Yeah.
But there was a point in time. Every night I would get in bed, 11 o'clock, whatever, and I would go to work. I had my laptop open, looking at whatever version of a sales report I had, and I'm sending individual text messages to people.
Yeah.
I get to Vivint, and this whole rent out at the movie theater for your friends thing. Nobody does that in California, right?
Yeah.
Jimmy Rex was hosting, I think, some. So I had to learn how to do pivot tables. So Vivint gave me the data, and I'm like, this is what I have to work with. So I remember sitting at the movie theater trying to finish up. My kids are walking the movie. I'm sending regionals at Vivint with screenshots. Hey, great job this week. Great job this week. Great. And I'm like, this is like an hour of my time, and it mattered, even though these guys are like, oh, macho, right?
Yeah.
if I didn't send them 1 week, somebody would say something. I didn't get your attaboy this week.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, but you mocked me for doing it, but you still loved receiving
That's
it.
That's right.
And so now NZ has the ability, like, you can have, if you have 100 people or 10 people, which ones had their best day ever.
Yeah.
And you can just say, and this is not taking away the emotion attached to it, but the way the software is set up, you can just do, hey, parentheses, first name, comma, great job having your best week ever. And it sends everybody a personalized message from your cell phone.
Yeah.
And then when they ping you back, then you go into the conversation. And it's so much better than sending a group mess. I wish I could go back the way I led sales teams and have a tool like that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, I don't know, up to peak, I'd have like 1,000 reps, right? At my Cutco days and all, like, and I'm texting managers, hey, ping me your best, the guys that had their best guys that had their best day. And then I'm sending 18 times 3, whatever that is, 56 text messages, 54 text messages.
Yep.
And I'm exhausted at the end. And then they all get back to you and you're like, oh, and then I'm up for another 3 hours.
Yes.
Where you could have just taken 30 seconds to send 50. It was when I saw that, I was like, this is a game changer.
Yeah, it is.
So the challenge is the data.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you are listening to this and you're starting a company and you're thinking about what's the most important thing, you got to get the data right. Yep. Because then tools like NZ, now you guys can fix data and you can help them get their source of truth and everything. But if the CRM connection is good and the data is clean, that tool is so powerful.
100%. And even if your org is 10 reps, go get a CRM in place and like have somebody that's assigned to keeping that data clean, and it will change your business. Because to your point, you can plug into tools like NZ, and now you bring culture and life.
It's probably even smart to go to companies like NZ or Sales Rabbit or whatever our part and go, how should I build my CRM to work with your software?
Yeah.
Because if that connection is not like, oh, we sync with Salesforce, okay, great, but it's not it. But it's now we got to make a sense out of your mess instead of like, let us set up. We have 90 companies. Let us set up your CRM correctly. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean the team's awesome. I mean HubSpot and Salesforce, and then Snowflake integrations and pest routes for pest companies. Like, if you have one of the major CRMs, that they can API and integrate super fast. It's the businesses where, maybe it's a good sales rep that starts a company, and then they kind of just run it on Excel or Google Sheets, and then they actually get really big and they've stuck themselves into this less sophisticated solution. Then it's like, how do we transition off of that? It becomes really problematic. Getting a good CRM in place early, if you find the right solution, isn't crazy expensive. Like Zoho is pretty cheap, and HubSpot can be less expensive if you're not huge yet. And I would say to your point, like, get it in place, get your data right, and then you'll have options to go and really take your business to the next level.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the reporting and the standings and everything. It's just a great tool.
Thank you.
We could probably talk forever, so I want to wrap up with this. And if anybody is to this point of the podcast and they're still listening to us, they're probably because they're in the solar industry going, say something that gives me hope.
Give me a nugget.
So where do you see solar? I don't think we've seen the worst. I think there's probably some more problems coming. But Sunder, I had Aaron Lee in here the other day. Vital, two companies that I believe that are doing the right things for their people with the finances. What's going to happen to solar in the next 4 or 5 years? Somebody's listening to this wants to be in solar. They are working for family. They're not coming to work for Sunder. They just want to know that you believe in the industry. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, the macro forces are on our side. So utility rates continue to rise.
That's who I wanted to bash. The utility companies.
The utilities, I mean, inflation's real for them too. Like, they have salaries that they have to bump up, and things have gotten more expensive for everybody. So utility rates continue to go up, which is a win for us. Solar equipment pricing is coming down over time as efficiencies are gained and new products come to market. So that's one of the main components of what a solar system costs. That will help us. I think regulation is coming, which I think is a very good thing. I think the more sophisticated, the more careful and ethical businesses will make it through that. I think you're going to continue to see a weeding out of kind of the weaker sales, finance, and installation companies over the next 6 months or so. The main two companies that kind of report on the industry are saying that 25 may or may not be a growth year. One of them says it will be. The other one says it'll be fairly flat against 24. But I think the long-term view, I mean, we have a good number of years left of the IRA incentives. I think this industry, there's a ton of demand, more electric cars, more electrification of the grid, or grid usage, cryptocurrency, like all these things require a ton. AI requires a ton of energy consumption. And so we have to go provide a solution. However, it's a tough time right now if you're trying to make your way through the space as a solar company or a company related to the solar industry. And so we just have to be careful. And I would say, if you're a sales rep or a business owner and you're continuing to just sniff out every single penny of margin and you're grinding everybody down to nothing, this industry will continue to turn over solar sales companies, EPCs, finance companies. It just won't be sustainable. So I'd say respect that the business that's backing you needs to be healthy and be okay with that. Like if it's a 5-cent difference or 10-cent difference, know that money will benefit you somewhere in the value chain and be okay with that. Have your customer in mind, think about their well-being and their service on a go forward, those types of things. But I think the industry itself, from a macro standpoint, has its best years ahead of it. I think if you dig into the current environment, there's a lot of pain right now and has been and will be. But I think the companies that are set up to sustain it and to mitigate risk and be strong through this will come out stronger on the other side. So we hope to be in that mix.
Yeah,
we don't take it for granted. Every day's a grind, but we're working hard at it.
Yeah, you guys will be there for sure. And
Thank you,
utility companies, you got off light today because I was about to go on attack mode of what's going on. I just think, I get it. But Eric, thanks for coming in.
Thanks, man.
Everybody, hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.